Welcome to the show. I am MMA insider and Herb Dean's dog sitter, Joey Venti, and you're listening to the MMA History Podcast, the only podcast dedicated 100% to the preservation of mixed martial arts history. Interviews and stories about the early days of MMA direct from the men who lived it. Hundreds of interviews, thousands of hours of research, all conducted by the most obsessed mind in the business, the MMA detective Mike Davis. Join us as we document the history of the sport we all love. Fellow historians, welcome back to the MMA History Podcast. I'm Joey Venti, joined as always by the MMA detective Mike Davis. Today we have a very special episode. Our guest is a third-degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, a standout alumni of Ultimate Fighter Season 12, a New Jersey Martial Arts Hall of Fame inductee, and a former King of Pancrase. Welcome, Andy Main. And a big thank you to the man who made this interview possible, sitting in with us, adding his insight. Friend of the show, Brian McLaughlin. Thanks for being back here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, guys.
All right. So, Andy, the one thing about the Atlantic Northeast is all of the fighters out there tend to like work with each other at some point or another. So you're kind of flush with like high-end talent. Jamie Varner being one of the early training partners of that of yourself. Did you ever spar with Jamie or interact with him in the gym?
Yeah, we interacted with Jamie. It wasn't that early in our career or in my career. He was already, a significant player in the game, and he dropped into AMA became just a hub of where people would, if they were on the East Coast at some point, they were probably going to stop in. Primarily because of Jim and Dan and Charlie and some of the other guys and actually Brian and, I'd like to think myself at some point. So Jamie came in and, he came from, whether it was just his personality or wherever he came from prior, with you spar like it's the, world championship, the UFC world championship every single time. So, ultimately he was a fairly dangerous person to spar with. The enjoyable part of that was that we had a few of those guys. We had a couple of Russians in the gym.
Him and Adlon would go at it. And it was like, and Jamie's very talented. No discredit to him, but watching him fight Adlon, he was like the ball in the pinball machine, just getting knocked across the room. With no lack of enthusiasm, he would go there and come back for more. So at the very least, you could say he took it as well as he gave it.
Yeah, exactly.
I was told that there was legendary sparring sessions between he and Amanda Nunes.
Varner and Nunes?
That's what I heard.
I don't specifically remember them.
This is what I remember about that. I remember Amanda and Jamie were around the same time. And I think that Jamie was coming in, kind of how a lot of people, when they spar with a female, they hold back a little bit. Yeah. And Amanda hit him with a power shot. I remember he clapped his gloves together and said, "So that's how it's going to effing be, huh?" And then he went at her with the same ferocity that he would go after Adlon. And to Amanda's credit, that was what she wanted.
Yeah.
But that was kind of contrary to the way we would spar a lot of times. We were a little more technical. We would keep a high pace, but lighter contact. And Varner had a different approach. And he was not nervous about voicing his displeasure with things.
Yeah, absolutely. Varner would make it very clear that he thought you were a bitch if you wouldn't engage with him at the same level. Because ultimately what ended up happening is guys don't want to, don't want to spar with you, especially if they have fights coming up. And he'd come in, try to get work, and a lot of the guys would just try to avoid him, especially, like I said, if they were within weeks of a fight. I mean, he barely sparred for the last week or two of his fight, and you'd be 3 days out of your fight, and he was going to fight you like he was the opponent.
So Jamie was also like a product of Drew Fickett, and Drew Fickett is kind of also a madman. And he's also kind of emotional, right? I mean, am I off on that?
Jamie would, he would. If you got the better of him, he would have a bad time with it. He wouldn't take it in stride always. And if he got the better of you, he would get really excited about it. And if somebody had done something that upset him, he just was, he was an emotional guy. It reminds me of, you remember training with Rico?
Yeah, of
when
course.
Rico would run the sessions.
Okay,
It's
so
like
wait, let's use last names. So Rico Rodriguez, I'm assuming?
Rico
Okay.
Rodriguez. He used to come by and run some sessions at AMA. And it was like a similar feel. And I guess different people have different ways of sparring. And when Rico and Jamie would have people spar, it was like, all right, get the med kits ready.
Yeah.
I remember there was one practice in particular where I think you got a knuckle in the eye. I blew my knee out. Charlie got hurt. It was like everybody got hurt. And it was because like, I remember I was sparring with you and I had hit you. And I don't know if like, I kind of realized that maybe you were hurt or a little bit. I backed off a little and Rico screams at me, finish him. Finish him. I like mouth. I'm like, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Like I went in on you.
Yeah.
But that was, and he even insisted we wear like 4-ounce gloves instead of the bigger sparring gloves.
Yeah.
And it's just different people have different ideas. And yeah, Rico and Varner were two guys that they wanted to spar, to the death.
Yeah.
Andy, but I mean, you guys are both gym owners. Guys like that tend not to last long in a gym without either being asked to leave or kind of understanding that it's time for them to move on. I mean, am I off on that?
Yes, but it's a totally different, like you really can't compare the way things operated back then to how they operate now. For the most part, most places that you go have adopted the mindset that we have, right? Which is you don't need hard, not, give you a headache and concussions in practice sparring actually at all, really. You just need the intensity and you need the technique. But back then, what would happen is, I mean, like the standard at the time was like American Top Team. And American Top Team, you went in there and you fought your way to the top, right? Or you would go to even like a Greg Jackson's gym, or I spent time out at Alliance MMA, right? So you'd go out there and there would be there would be 50, 60 fighters, right? So you'd have these massive groups of fighters. And the only way you got enough attention from the coaches was by being the best in the room. Well, the only way you were the best in so you actually had to fight your way to the top. So the guys that lasted, yes, you're correct. The large majority of those people that fought, that trained that way, probably didn't last. But the ones that did were ridiculously tough, right? The Varners of the world, the world champions of the world that had that level of toughness, fought their way to the top of whatever crop that they were a part of, and, managed to keep their head on their shoulders long enough. And then, most of them had a successful career because they were able to do both of that. But, they left a lot of people in their wake that you have never heard of, who now probably have levels of brain damage and, knees with multiple replacements. And, and thankfully our gym was intense, but it didn't have that level of competitiveness within the community. So we weren't actually trying to hurt each other, because for us, it was just small enough that if Brian got hurt, I just lost probably 30% of my training partners that were at a high level near my weight class that I wanted to be sparring with all the time. So I couldn't hurt Brian. Brian couldn't hurt me, and then us maintain a successful training camp.
When you talk to the old Lions Den guys, when they talk about Ken Shamrock and him fighting Tito Ortiz, they're just like confused how Tito could ever beat him because of how intense Ken was in practice. But that's what happens. Sometimes you leave your best work in the cage in the gym rather than come fight time.
If I'm 80%, I'm 100%, right? Where it was like, now with my guys, I'm like, guys, if you just make it to the cage near 100%, where you're not injured, and again, you're going to take bumps and bruises, but like dealing with true injuries, like I fought with, one of the times we were in Japan, we were literally running around trying to find somebody to give me a cortisone shot because I couldn't pick my hand above my shoulder, right? Like, I was fighting, right? I was like, I'm fighting. And and again, like I had that mentality to a certain extent. We weren't going crazy, but we were training pretty hard out in Japan with new guys I had never trained with.
I did think that was a little crazy.
Yeah.
How you were going.
Right.
You go to Art's gym and stuff like that.
Yeah. But I was like, I just want to, I prided myself on the ability to, right through my weight cut, be training hard right up until. But, now looking back, I'm like, there was really no value to doing that. It doesn't make you, it's just a mental thing. You're like, I'm tough because I can do it, but you're not in better shape for it. And a couple of times I was worse off for it because I had a popped rib 2 days before. I tore my shoulder 2 days before, and I'm getting in there and I'm like, I remember that fight. I was like, I literally have to get out of this fight in the first round or I'm not going to be able to keep fighting. So.
Andy, your career started really young as well. Like I mean, I think your first fight is at the age of 18. You may have been a senior in high school, 18 or 19. And when does your training begin?
So most of my I picked up jiu-jitsu when I was 16, just about to be 17. That's 2006, and immediately started competing in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, doing well on the local circuit. Just enjoyed it. And funny thing is before my first fight. So my first fight, I'm sure you looked it up, was Jimmy Rivera, right? Very successful fighter. And at that time, he was already, I think, 3-0, had some boxing fights and kickboxing fights. And, and a promoter. And basically what ended up happening was I was doing well in competition. Promoter calls me and was like, this guy's got no grappling. You'll sub him, no problem, kind of thing.
Hey, it's always that. Every promoter.
Yeah. And
who was the promoter?
Was that Carl Mascarenas?
It was New Breed Fighters.
The New Breed. Yeah, I think it was Carl, if I remember correctly, but I could be wrong. I don't remember specifically, but so he actually booked me against somebody else from that same team, and then called me like a week before and was like, and made it for a title. It's my first fight ever. He's like, I got a big opportunity. You're going to fight Jimmy Rivera. You're going to sub this guy. And I ate it up. I was like, yeah, I am. And now to this point, my striking experience consisted of 90% cardio kickboxing classes. I was only doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu, competing in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And I had started wrestling with a freestyle style wrestler once a week. So I was building up my wrestling, but I really had no business being in there with somebody with as much experience as him.
Let me set the table before, and Brian, I'll send you afterwards. So everybody kind of understands who Jimmy Rivera is. He's a Newark police officer currently. He was 7-4 in the UFC, 4-0 in Bellator, and 1-0 in World Series of Fighting. Like that's your what? Are you 18 or 19 at that time?
18.
Okay.
Well, so I mean, listen. So was he? He was.
Oh, was he?
Yeah. I mean, maybe 18, 19. We're about the same age. I don't know exactly how old he is, but yeah, he was very young.
Good high school wrestler.
Yeah, but he started in Tiger Schulman. So Tiger Schulman had this crop of guys: Julio Arce, Jimmy Rivera, Lyman Good. These guys that started very young with him were competing in their in-house stuff from the point that they were like 8 years old. And they were like bred for combatives, like they introduced a better grappling program later on, but they still were very tough and they were very good at like anti-jiu-jitsu and they were good. And again, like everybody just thought they were like a karate team for a very long time and like maybe decent kickboxers, but they very quickly became recognized as, oh, these guys know how to fight and they're very well-rounded.
Go ahead, Brian.
Well, at this time, I was actually cross-training, getting all my striking in with Tiger Schulman's. And right around the time of this fight, I had not met Andy yet. And Tiger Schulman had me work with Jimmy Rivera to get him ready for some jiu-jitsu kid. So I was teaching him submission defense and how to work against I would later find out would be my friend Andy. So I was actually behind the scenes coaching Jimmy against Andy in his first fight.
I tell you the one thing about Tiger Schulman, his entire school, was when Naga, the grappling tournament would release like their year-end results, he would have he'd be at like one of the top 5 schools in the entire country, and it was because of just how many students he had. He was literally like the first TMA school that said, enough with this, we got to transition over to jiu-jitsu. Like, you can say whatever it is you want about Tiger Schulman. I don't know him, but he read the writing on the wall really quick in regards to the direction his schools needed to go.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably one of, if not the most successful gym owners in the world. And yeah, and he rode that wave for the more traditional style for a very long time. And then, yeah, he transitioned. But again, like they weren't like, and I don't know, I mean, maybe way back they were very, very traditional focused, but like by the time I was competing against them, they had, because they were also very linked with the local boxing scene as well. So like they had high level boxing coaches in house. So these guys could fight. Like they could definitely fight. The thing that they introduced was more grappling. And it progressively over time got better. There was a period of time that I was teaching there as well, at the headquarters. But yeah, they were, as far back as I could remember, they were already pretty advanced as a system.
So you start at the age of like 16, your journey. You fight by the age of 18. Um, Along the way, you got Jimmy Rivera, December 28, 2007. That's your first fight. You lose by rear naked choke. I mean, sometimes like people, it puts people like a fork in the road where they're like, I'm not touching this, or they say, their competitive nature comes out and they really springboard forward. I mean, you're just a young kid at this point. Your first fight's a loss.
Yeah, so the benefit that I had was that I didn't actually think, like, my goal was not to be a fighter at that time. I started doing jujitsu, and the reason that I fell in love with jujitsu was because I had a misconception that I was a tough guy. I was a natural athlete. I wasn't particularly like strong or anything, but I had been in lots of fights when I was younger in like middle school. And any altercations that I had ever been in, I could handle myself. So I always assumed that I could fight. Um, and then I took my first Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class and I got tied into a knot by an average 45-year-old guy that wasn't athletic at all, that I thought any day of the week that I could wipe the floor with, right? So that was the reason I fell in love with it. And I was like, I don't know how to fight. So then I start doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm doing well in competition. I do that fight. And it dawned on me, I still don't know how to fight. So I'm killing it on the local jiu-jitsu scene. I mean, it's also important to remember, like back then, like I was a very successful blue belt, which today nobody would care. But at that time, like there wasn't many black belts, purple, brown, or black belts competing. So I was winning, and I was also beating purple belts and brown belts in competition, some black belts. So I was doing really well. I thought I could fight again. And then I met Jimmy and I was like, I can't fight. Like I can grapple a little bit. I'm sure in a grappling match I'd be competitive, but he beat me up. Like he did. I didn't have anything for him. I was, buddy, at this point I had cross-trained a little bit with Tim Troxel. Tim Troxel was at that fight, came up to me after. He's like, if you want to actually learn how to fight, the best fight team in New Jersey is right up the road from where you live. Come out to AMA Fight Club, and kind of that was where that started. So that was a pivotal moment, because I realized I needed to be surrounded by, a real team of fighters. And I couldn't be doing cardio kickboxing classes and think I was going to make it.
So where I think what gets lost in translation with AMA and just how influential it was and how big it was, Khabib Nurmagomedov, he started there.
He started his American, like when he came over from America, from Dagestan. He joined. There was a team that had a lot of Russian fighters locally, and they would cross train with us over at AMA.
It was K Dojo under Marat Kishniev. I think I'm saying his name properly.
Yeah.
We always knew him as Master K. And he would bring an assorted level of killers that had limited English and limited sympathy.
Yeah, exactly.
Even less sympathy than English. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Which is funny because Marat himself is actually like a very happy-go-lucky guy.
Yeah, he's a nice dude.
But I don't know if in Dagestan and Chechnya, smiling is illegal, but they were an intense group of people.
He had a really interesting thing going over there, because he would just, I'm pretty sure he kind of had some deal where people would pay to come stay with him or something, and then be at his gym, and he would be like cycling through these guys. And like if you look at the people that have come through his gym, there's a few like real real elite people, the most elite, honestly. But like that would be one for every like 50. right? We would like show up and he'd bring 13 new Russians and we'd be like, all right, we have no idea who is awful, right? Because a lot of them were, and who can really fight. And the ones that could really fight were like insanely dangerous, right? So like it wasn't like, oh, okay, there's like kind of an average here. It's like there's these monster elite athletes, and then the rest of them were kind of like nothing, right? And you didn't know what was going to be what when you first showed up.
And then from time to time, you would look up and you would find out, like, do you remember the guy Shaw that used to come by? He was a featherweight. Anyway,
I'm not sure.
he ended up getting, and it's on video. He ended up getting killed in a gang assassination.
Oh.
You know, and then like you'd find out that like Adlon stabbed the guy.
Yeah.
And
no, it was
like,
a very eclectic group of Russians.
You had no idea who was going to walk in, but it was going to be, you kind of say your prayers before each round. But yeah, Khabib was with us too, and he was part of that. And, Adlon was the guy, this was my feeling at least, that like if you went back in time and said one of these guys is going to become like the best fighter ever, I would have thought it was Adlon. And Khabib was good. Don't get me wrong. He was very good, but he didn't seem unstoppable in the room.
I'll tell you, one fun like thing that I regret is that the one of the greatest male MMA fighters of all time and the greatest female fighter of all time, at one point in time, I was training with them one-on-one. And the reason was because Khabib's coach at that time, he was obviously a killer, but his jiu-jitsu was limited. His striking wasn't great. And he was just a monster wrestler, and he was physical enough that he beat up most people, but like he couldn't pass my guard. And his coach was like, I want him just to come in here and try to pass your guard a couple times a week. Would you be happy to meet up with him? And I was like, all right, I guess I'll meet up with this rant. Like I already train a lot. Like I kid you not, I didn't take one picture. Like I wasn't like training with this guy. Like I wasn't like training with this guy. Like, oh my gosh, this guy's going to be one of the best in the world. I was like, he'll be all right. Like I was not overly impressed by him to even think that like I should probably grab a picture. This is going to make for a good story. And then the same with Amanda Nunes. So like Amanda, she was training with us for a little while, and then she ended up in some personal altercation with somebody at our gym and then wasn't coming to the gym anymore.
Was that why?
I mean,
I knew about the altercation. I thought it was that she had a health concern, but anyway.
No, I think she was dating somebody. Yeah. Anyway, so long story short is she found her way out, and she was, I think at the time, maybe 4-3 or something like that. Nothing significant. Her grappling was, she hit hard. That was it. Like she could spar, she could box, but if she wasn't like like where you would watch her box and be like, wow, this girl is an absolute elite striker. You were like, this girl can hit me and do damage like in a weird way for sure. And you couldn't sleep on her, but you didn't watch her do anything and think you were in the room with who was eventually going to be MMA royalty as far as female, women's MMA goes. So anyway, so she called me and was like, I'm living at this person's garage and there's mats in the room. Would you come train with me? Right. So I'm like, again, I'm the nice guy and like, whatever. And I'm driving a half an hour to train with her by herself or like sometimes with her coach just to do some jujitsu for like months. And I didn't take one picture, and like it was just us, and sometimes it was groups of 3, and like she literally became the best in the world, and I had no inkling that was going to happen.
And let me ask you, do you get people, because I get this all the time, where you're not trying to name drop, but it'll just come out and you're like, oh, I trained with Khabib and I trained with Amanda, and they think you're lying.
Yeah.
Dude, there's so many people that think I'm so full of it. I never asked for pictures, even if I thought the person was going to be something. Like we trained with Frankie and stuff. I never asked him for a picture because it's like you didn't want to feel like you were fanboying out. You want to be respected as a peer. But now you're sitting there and you're like, man, would it have killed me?
Right.
To be like, here, look, the best fighter ever. Yeah. But yeah, we never did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tell you that your East Coast, it's the last to become legal, like New York. It's always like everything is slower in regards to progress. But in terms of, I don't know if it's just sheer numbers, but the fighters coming out of, from that general area, very, very high end. Like, look at Mike Brown. I mean, Mike Brown was from Maine. Like, it was kind of like he found his way to where he was at because, he was so driven, by success. But it's always surprising, like those East Coast, your East Coast guys, just like how you guys propel yourselves.
I think it's also because on the East Coast, nobody gets sheltered. You are going to start fighting people that are absolute killers. Like I said, his first fight was Jimmy Rivera. Like you start fighting very tough people very early on. And if the whole idea of, let's build this guy, yeah, they might build you for 2 fights, but afterwards, you're going to have to fight someone extremely tough.
Lou Neglia has got his fingerprints all over that. And like Lou Neglia, he gets a lot of respect. Like you'll hear negative things like, oh my God, well, he got me beat here, he got me beat there. But like, he's always paid his debt. He's always been a man of his word. Like I search for information. I haven't had one person really come with like a legitimate complaint about Lou Neglia. And he was one of the first promoters from that area.
Neglia is what I'll say about Lou is that what he did right is he carved his niche and then he didn't try to reinvent it. And what a lot of these promoters do is they are in this constant battle against each other. And then it's like, most of them know that they're not going to be the UFC. Some of them do, right? Which is crazy, but most of them don't. And what Lou did is he's like, the venue was the same every single time.
Salisbury steak at the Trop.
Yeah. You have and he set certain things up. He worked out the deal with the hotel, whatever it was, you knew what you were getting. You were going down there, you knew what the warm-up room was going to look like. You knew what the ticket deal was. You just knew it was so predictable that it was more comfortable than most experiences, because most of these fights you would go to, and some were better than others, but you would go out and do these amateur fights, and it was a roll of the dice. You didn't know what you were getting yourself into. And I have, some really funny stories or interesting stories that people are like, what are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, went to Indiana and I was fighting. The way I remember it was just this big barn, right? Like, and certain things were cool and fine, and certain things were not. Like, they used the wrong lights, and they were literally boiling fighters' skin off and just letting the fights go. And I was like, and I had to put my foot down and make the promoter turn their lights off for half an hour, because I was like, I'm not getting out there watching people. People would come back, they were being carried out of the cage, and I'm like, oh my God, what happened? You got knocked out? They're like, no, they won, but the skin on the bottom of their feet had melted off, right? And I was like, I want to fight in 2 months, like in a month. Like, no, I'm not doing this. Like, what are you talking about? I'm a grappler. We're going to end up on the ground. Like, and things like that. Sometimes you run into. There was none of that with Lou Neglia. You even knew how, like, the logo, the decals, you were like, yeah, the decal in the middle is a little slippery. That, the cage is the same cage. Like, it was just predictable, and fighters knew what they were going to get, so they could go there, build their career there. And they stayed with him long enough, and he's been around forever, to the point that, like, just on a number scale, you're going to get more and more and more fighters that at some point were training with him that made it to the UFC.
Yeah, Matt Serra and Phil Baroni both got their start there. That's how far back Lou Neglia goes.
Right.
All right, so you kind of went down the path of the fights. Your first fight's amateur, so you fought Jimmy Rivera for free, essentially.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming they didn't know you were a big ticket seller, so they threw you up against Rivera, and obviously he was. But your second fight, they kind of make up for it. It's Ring of Combat, obviously a different promoter, but Ricky Lee is your opponent, a guy with extensive Muay Thai experience. Controversial fight.
I had one more amateur fight before Ricky Lee.
Flores, right?
Yeah, Robbie Flores.
Was that... Okay, so I got Jimmy Rivera December of 2007. I got Rob Flores April? Was that April of 2008?
I want to say it was longer than that.
Joey, look it up. I screwed up.
No, it might not even
the
be up.
records are
I'm
right.
not even sure. It
It's
might
not on Sherdog.
It's on MMA.tv
Might-
or mixedmartialarts.com. Tapology. It's on Tapology.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, so that, and it is kind of a funny thing because with that, you know, I had been working on striking, but I was by no means a striker. But I went out hoping to, you know, redeem myself, but also gain some experience. And I knocked him out in 10 seconds. And it was just a brawl. Like there was nothing impressive about it. I just tucked my chin, he tucked his chin, and I landed first.
And then where does he end up training?
AMA.
AMA.
Yeah.
And pissing off everyone on the fight team.
Robbie?
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the only person that Jim has ever singled out to say, I don't like that guy.
That's pretty funny.
Rob Flores is 2008, November 15th. So you basically took 11 months off between fights.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, but no, wait. Now, where's Ricky Lee at that? I
So
Ricky Lee
apologize.
is
no
2009,
worries.
April 17th.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's where I screwed up.
Yeah. So what ended up
I apologize.
no worries. So what ended up happening there? So yeah, I took the year because again, I realized I really need to complete my game. And the funny thing is, in retrospect, like a year of training, like 11 months of training, thinking I completed but I liked the opponent. I was like, cool, I'll definitely be able to take him down and sub him, knocked him out in 10 seconds. And then so again, like you guys, I'm sure you know, right? Like back then, very Wild West. So, you know, going pro.
Greatest ever.
Yeah. So going pro was very much just kind of deciding you wanted to go pro and having some kind of opportunity. The difficulty was that there was a lot less fights to choose from but like basically one of our training partners had gotten sick, pulled out of the fight against Ricky Lee. And I was like, oh, I'll fight that guy. Like I looked him up. I was like, he looks like a Muay Thai guy. Same deal. I'll take him down and choke him out. Like that was totally the intention. And then I went out there and just tucked my chin and banged a little bit and ended up knocking him out. And so now like the local media, MMA media starts writing me they're like this knockout artist, Andy Main. And I was like, these people have no idea. I was like, the funny thing is actually, so I'm a southpaw. I'm a right-handed southpaw. Everything that I had done prior was right foot forward. So I was very awkward on my feet in the beginning because obviously just learning to box, but also I couldn't get my feet right. And it wasn't until another probably year later, at some point, Jim Miller was training for a lefty, asked me if I would stand lefty for him. And I was like, holy crap, I can move. And I was like, I completely relearned how to strike how to box because I realized I could move as a lefty. And so I'm still standing righty at this point and I can't move my feet right. I can't really wrestle off my left foot forward. So my wrestling is worse. My, jiu-jitsu is jiu-jitsu, but like once you're on the ground, so like I'm a mess going out there trying to figure this out. And, and he was like, a Muay Thai coach for a decent gym at the time. And I ended up knocking him out. And now like everybody's like, oh, watch out for this knockout guy. This guy is a big striker. And I was like, well, the good thing is all the really good strikers don't want to fight me. So all the guys that want to fight me want to take me down. And then that literally lended itself.
So your fight with Ricky Lee, there was an accidental thumb to the eye. He was actually a pretty experienced Muay Thai guy. Like what I could dig up on him, he had about a decade of Muay Thai experience. Am I off on that?
The research that we did on him, he was a Muay Thai coach at a pretty established gym, and yeah, he had a lot of experience. I don't know if he had fights. I never really looked into it. I just knew that he was supposed to be a decent striker. However, and at the time I didn't know if he like was doing this to mess with me. He showed up wearing basketball shorts, and like that's always like a telltale sign of I'm like, what is going on here? Nobody wears basketball shorts with pockets except for Brian.
Yeah.
I
was a sleeper at the gym because I do that.
Yeah. That's the opponent you want. That's for sure. Yeah.
Right.
So you got those three right there. After Flores, you're dealing with illness, they say, and then there's like a time period between November of 2008 and June 2009 where Steve McCabe is your next opponent, Ricky Lee's teammate.
Was he Ricky Lee's teammate? That's funny. Yeah.
Yes.
So, and McCabe had a really bad record. And he was like one of those fights that you could not go lose, right? It was like, okay, because he was tough and everybody talked about how tough he was in the gym, supposedly. But I believe his record when I fought him was like 3-8 or something like that. It was not a great record. So it was one of those fights where I was like, I have to go out here and perform, and this is going to be sort of a pivot. Even though like on paper, you're like, yeah, just go out and get your win. But those are the fights that are, they're the most pressure when you're going against somebody that's supposed to beat you, right? You kind of like, all right, pressure's off. Like, yeah, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to do my thing. But when you got somebody that you're supposed to smoke,
Jim said the same thing about fighting Al Buck. He said it was the most nervous he ever was on the guys fighting with a losing record.
Right. Like you have that confidence, but you're like, man, it only takes one. And you talk to people in the industry, they're like, no, McCabe can hit. He's decent, and I'm like, all right, we'll see, but that went well.
So Wilson Hayes, his teammate, Jackson Galka, is next on a Danis fight team, September 11th, 2009, on Ring of Combat. Like, there's some, like, between Pellegrino, yourself, Danis, like, you, Bomb Squad, Rhino, like, there's, like, some teams that are really deep from your area.
Yeah, I mean, as long as I can remember, they're always the divisions were always pretty deep, and tough, especially the 45, 55, 70, on the local scene. And because we also New York didn't have sanctioning forever. So we got all the New York guys. We got lots of Pennsylvania.
PA didn't have sanctioning for a while.
Yeah, PA didn't have sanctioning. So we got all those guys, all the tough wrestlers from Pennsylvania.
And it was close enough that you'd still get tough guys from like the New England area.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so they were all tough camps. Yeah, and Galka was a tough fight. That was so Lou back then, he did these, if you were on the undercard, you fought 2 rounds and only went to the third if there wasn't a clear winner. So we had a strange split decision because 2 judges had me winning both, and 1 judge had it, I forget, either him winning. But it was a split decision. But it was a close fight. Yeah, it was. He was a tough kid.
And then, like, here, I was told that you initially were with a Renzo affiliate.
So, yeah. So here's the thing. I'm gonna just tell you ahead of time. These stories get a lot more interesting kind of here forward.
Yeah.
Depending on what you want to talk about, right? There's the fight side of it, and then there's the, political side of my history. So I'll give you a brief and then you can dig in however you want. I'm happy to talk about it. I started at a Renzo affiliate for jiu-jitsu. I mentioned that all I was doing was jiu-jitsu and cardio kickboxing until my first fight, at which time I started training at AMA. Well, AMA also had Jamie Cruz. Jamie Cruz is, a Renzo black belt. And at that time, there was no official affiliation. And anybody that was under Renzo and had a gym was a Renzo gym. So the affiliation starts and they start charging, and then some places didn't pay, right? So they dropped their affiliation effectively. And Jamie and AMA was one of those places. So now the place that I'm training, that I had originally started at, was like, they're no longer a Renzo affiliate. You can't train there anymore. So I ended up in a situation where I had to say, well, no, this is where I do MMA. Where am I supposed to go do MMA? And that began a very long, or it wasn't even that long in retrospect, but it seemed like a very long battle where I was kicked out of that gym. Then I was kicked out of Renzo Gracie's. And then once I was on the Ultimate Fighter and St. Pierre and Donna who were there, I got invited back, and then I got invited back to that gym. And so but the long story short is ultimately I was eventually exiled from the Renzo affiliation.
No grata.
Yeah. Ironically, I maintained a good relationship with Renzo though, because I had, connected with him along the way. I'm not his best friend, but for context, many years later, Renzo came to my gym and gave me my third degree. So, like I was still connected with him while all of his cousins were trying to fight me at every opportunity.
I'm going to tell you this. I've met Renzo a handful of times. He is by far my favorite Gracie. Out of the entire list of badasses from that family, Renzo's a real one. Like, what you get. And like, not afraid to fight tough, not afraid to talk to an enemy. I mean, I'm not saying that you were, but yeah, like
I don't know.
Yeah. So the thing with, and again, like, yeah, Renzo's great. Renzo's, he wears it all on his sleeve. And at the end of the day, here's the reality. Renzo was larger than life. At this point, he's already got tons of gyms and tons of members, thousands of members. He's probably extremely or fairly wealthy. He becomes a I forget what is it, went to Brazil, an ambassador, some kind of like political figure. Like he's like this little bullshit stuff meant nothing to him, and if the reality was, it was annoying to him. I think, right? So where like they would be like, oh, Andy left this little affiliate gym of his the guy who owned that gym was like at that time like 50. Nobody. The reality was he was nobody in Renzo's massive sea of students and black belts and everything else. So like, and for them to be like calling him and be like, there's this 20-year-old kid or 19-year-old kid that wants to cross train with one of your black belts, but he's not paying the affiliation, so that guy doesn't want to let him train there, and because of that, Renzo's like, I don't get, like, what are you talking about? Like, stop fighting with people, right? Like, that was his attitude. But there were, like, again, the cousins, especially when everybody was younger, like they were hardcore loyalists, and there was like some crazy stuff that were like they would try to like blacklist you, right? But the problem was for them that like Marcelo's was right up the road, where I was like, all right, fine, I can't train here, I'll go to Marcelo's, right? Like I didn't care, I didn't have that loyalty to like the school, right? But I always liked Renzo. I like to wear the fly that banner for a long time. But I was like, but if you guys are gonna just ban me because I'm not getting along with this random 50-year-old black belt in Denville, New Jersey, then what am I going to do? I'm not going to fight you about it. They wanted to fight me, but like, that was the thing. I was like, I just want to win. I just want to go train and fight. Like that was it.
I think this is where you ran into issues. Like, and I kind of got it earmarked. And where I don't want to use his name. You haven't said his name. I'm not either. But I did send Brian like what I refer to as almost like a hostage video earlier in regards to like a post-tough interview with that gentleman, and it's dude, it's fucking amazing.
And that was
fucking amazing.
Yeah, that was me putting an olive branch out because my brother still trained there. A lot of people that I was friends with still trained there, and I came back and he invited me back because he was, of course, now I'm super popular, right? And I didn't care. I was like, whatever. If I'll let things go. I'm pretty easy to get over things. And I gave him a jersey to hang up, a tough jersey to hang up at his gym and the whole thing. And then like 2 months later, he's like, so you're not gonna train at AMA anymore, right? And I was like, the fuck are you talking about? So I had a big, and this was a much more bigger fallout, because now I'm a little older. Now I'm fighting back. Because in the beginning, I was just like quietly sneaking my way out. I was like, all right, I'm out of here, like whatever. Now I'm becoming more vocal. I'm, even, I kind of regret like going for tit for tat for him on like Facebook and stuff. But I did, and this is
no, wait. Let me just kind of interrupt you. You're a 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid.
Yes.
This is a 50-year-old man. If I may set the table, so
right.
I used to promote here in Chicago. I've probably done 250 events. Like I've got 20 plus years as a promoter. I mean, to kind of flex on my resume, I worked for Bodog, I worked for Abu Dhabi, I currently work for BKFC. So like I've been in combat sports since I was, I don't know, 8 years old on participant side, administration side, 20, 21. So what you do is you run into people that they try to figure out ways on why you can't fight or why you shouldn't fight. Mervin Rodriguez is a Henzo affiliated student. I figured this was the fight where all that bullshit kind of started.
No, I don't think so. Like that, all of the bullshit had to do like it was a direct result of the guy that owned that gym.
And it was every Henzo guy wanting to be dad's favorite.
Right.
You know, like Jamie was one of the foremost, most respected black belts. And I think people were just straight up jealous of that.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, Jamie doesn't have to pay the fee and we pay the fee. And Jamie's still in the good graces of Henzo and we're kissing the ring. And we don't feel
that sounds like a you problem, not a me problem.
Yeah.
Well, it was, but the you know, and
I'm talking them. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So he doesn't pay the fee. Who gives a shit? What does that have to do with you?
Right. Yeah, but you know, like there was still for a very long time, there was this old school kind of this old school martial arts mentality of if you're not with me, you're against me. And you know, and that was just, and it was unfortunate. And actually, that was what dawned on me was like I was training there, and I actually worked there for a little while as well, the first gym that I was training at, and they you know, like I was convinced that every other gym owner was the worst person in the world. And then when I like left that world, that like bubble, I was like, these guys are great. Like some of these guys that he had made out to be like really bad people, when I opened my gym, like came out of the woodworks and were like, here's my material, here's this. Like they were so helpful. And I had engaged with them, you know, in other ways over the years as well. But they weren't jealous. And it was like the most successful gym owners, like, sure, you protect certain things with your area, everything else, it cuts competition. But like it wasn't because I don't like I didn't hate you for being a competitor. I just was going to win ethically, right? Whereas I was convinced everybody was a bad person, right? Including including Jamie to it. Not, wasn't convinced Jamie was a bad person, but like he did everything but outright say, you know, Jamie's a bad person, because it's very hard to say that about Jamie. He's one of the best people on the planet. He's a very, very kind person. And he was one of the people that stood up with me during that time. So just to kind of like to bring that around, what ended up happening was that person sort of started forming an alliance, right, with anybody within like the other old school gym owners that were Henzo affiliates to kind of like, well, again, he was trying to blacklist me.
Okay, but did he do this with everybody or was it just you?
Well, at that time,
your brother.
Well, eventually my brother as well.
Literal hit out on him.
What the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, man, I'm flattered. I'm just not interested. I mean, I don't know what to say.
So again, like, here's the thing. Like, the idea was that because you started here, that like you owe me something, right? And again, like I was a big proponent of him and his gym, and I tried to be a big supporter for a long time, but he could not grasp me also being a part of AMA. And he looked at and here's the funny thing. He's about 20 minutes away from AMA, where back then he was like, Derek, they came in and encroached on my territory kind of thing. Where like now there's gyms every 5 minutes, right? Like it just, there's so much. But back then, yeah, like the idea that AMA was against him just because they were existing 20 minutes up the road. But you know, the jiu-jitsu was few and far between around here. So that was kind of the idea. It was like, oh, well, you know, Jamie is higher ranked than me and he's, you know, better. He's just a better teacher and competitor and everything. So he's going to like ruin my business. Like that was his perspective. So because of that, he couldn't allow it. Right. And I basically had to come to a point where I was just like, look, I want to be a fighter now. And I'm not going to allow, like, why am I going to allow another adult to control? Like I was paying him up until the point that I was working for him, right? So I was like, no problem. I'm just going to quit. I'm going to go train. I paid there. I paid here, right? Like I'm not like just like getting free training all over the place at this point. So I'm going to go wherever I want to go, right? And that became a whole thing within the affiliation. But the worst part of it, I don't really want to like spend too much time on this.
No, we're going to move on. But go ahead.
The worst part of it was like there was so like once like the headquarters, basically he called headquarters, banned this guy, right? So they're like, fine, like they don't care, they don't ask questions. So I'm banned from headquarters, and it's like out there, right, that I'm banned. But the thing is they still kind of expect you to be a loyalist, even though they've banned you, right? So like I went on to coach against Gregor Gracie at some point. Well, that was a major issue for them. And like I had people reaching out to you, like, how could you? You trained with Gregor, you came up under Renzo and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, do you guys not remember kicking me the fuck out and not asking me my side of the story? Right? Like I was like, why do you think I should have loyalty to any of you? Right? Like this doesn't make any sense. And by the way, I'm just this is a training partner of mine and I'm just in his corner. Like, you know, Matt Serra cornered against somebody from what's the guy? Almeida last week in the UFC. Like, what are you talking about? You guys, this happens all the time, right? But for me, because I was shunned, it was a big deal. And there were times like I did almost end up in an altercation with Hulse Gracie because of it. But other than that, it eventually just kind of, I did my own thing, obviously had a career that was a lot of fun and I consider very successful, and had a successful gym, and little by little, they all started just kind of like, it just became nothing, a non-issue.
This is totally typical. As I'm listening to your story, we had the same stuff play out with Carlson Gracie affiliates in California. It's just the way jiu-jitsu was at the time.
Dude, you're also dealing with, all right, this guy goes on to the Ultimate Fighter in short order after this. The amount of maturity, like I've watched all your interviews from like 12 and 15 years ago. You were so much more mature than I was at that age. Like, I don't know where that comes from or how, like what things your parents instilled in you, but you were decades more advanced than most of the kids that you probably graduated high school with.
Yeah, no, I felt that way. I do actually think just being in the jiu-jitsu community was a major part of that, because I was around people that were older than me for most of my, basically since I was 16 years old, right? Like high school stuff just was not interesting. You know, I have friends that are having kids or, getting married or buying houses or like what, you know what I mean? And I'm like this is like real adult stuff. I know where that was instilled, but I would, set these goals for myself and try to do my best, right, to accomplish them. And that had to do with more than just training really hard, right? Like it was living a particular type of lifestyle. And then, that translated into how I managed myself and then also eventually my career. But my dad owns his own business, right? So I got to see somebody that is, pretty successful and in control of his own life rather than working for somebody else. So I got to see that side of it. And I got to see a lot of different stages of the fight career, right? All at once. I saw the guys that were kind of on their way out, people that were out with injuries, whose careers ended, so like I had context as well. And thankfully, for whatever reason, I was able to process that and make good decisions for myself.
I agree. And like you're on a roll as well. You win by triangle against Mervin Rodriguez. Lester Caskow is your next opponent. He's a training partner of Jeff Lentz. He's Joe, you got to listen to this. He's 5-3-1.
Mm-hmm.
But he loses a split decision to future Bellator champion Daniel Strauss. And he loses a decision to Pat Audenwood.
Awesomely awesome
Audenwood.
Yeah.
Like, those are two absolute murderers that he lost a split in a decision to. Like, it is a very deceiving record.
Yeah, Caslow. He was very tough. That fight for me was the first. So I, even given as tough as he was, I still believe to this day believe that on all day long I should have been able to just take him down and sub him. What ended up happening was he had fought a training partner of mine, Joe Camacho, and Joe Camacho was a good wrestler, and in the room he was a better wrestler than me.
Wait, hold up.
This isn't Joe Camacho.
No,
it's not Joe Camacho from California.
No,
okay.
no, it's not.
Yeah, no,
so,
that's where we've been confused.
It's one of Joey's best friends that passed.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So Joe Camacho was a very solid wrestler, and I watched him fight Caslow, and Caslow stuffed all of his takedowns. So in my head, I'm not going to be able to take down Caslow. And that's the right fight, right? I think that was the right fight. Sometimes I get those early fights mixed up, but yeah, I had in my head that he was going to be impossible to take down. And then I just ended up striking with somebody who was at that, that was what he was good at. He was a heavy hitter, very strong kicker, and just a solid all around fighter. And then started wrestling late in the match, took him down and had him in trouble, but just couldn't do it. I didn't have enough energy, and I just couldn't do enough with the amount of time that I had left, and ultimately dropped that fight. But that was when I realized I was like, I got to stop assuming things about people just because, one fight went a particular way. And I tried to just focus more on myself than like.
So important. So important, dude. It's like your first flight to like your airplane ride. It's those little things that kind of make who you are later on in your professional career. And coming off a loss shortly after that, you tried out for the Ultimate Fighter season 12. It was in North Carolina. My notes say you drove down there with Mike Madrano.
Wow. Yeah, I did. Where did you find that I drove down there?
That's why he's the MMA detective.
Thank you. Brian, I thought you listened to the show. What the fuck? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I drove down there with Madrano. It was an awkward ride back because he got cut in the first round. Now, the only reason I went down there for that tryout was because I had spoken to Dante Rivera, and he told me, he was like, you just got to keep showing up. It's going to take 2 or 3 times, right? And so I went down there with no like inkling that I would get on my first try, and I was coming off a loss. So I was like, all right, I'll just show face, show them that I know what I'm doing a little bit here, go out, get a couple more wins, and then try out for the next season. It was also up a weight class from where I was, fighting anyway, but I was like, I'll just go down there and move around. So I went down there, and, thankfully whoever they paired me with to grapple was an awful grappler. So I looked like a killer on the ground, and then I just kept it basic on the feet. And they passed me all the way through and did a little interview at the end, and got that call not too long after.
Joey, he went the hard route. Like, the easy route is to be like just a loose cannon, wild guy.
Right.
Add a little alcohol, you got instant asshole. And, he's just very presentable, good dude. Like you said, coming off a loss. And dude, what a lot of people don't know is you got to be 21 to even participate on the Ultimate Fighter, because they want you drinking on the show.
Yeah, well, yeah, because there was alcohol on the show, and yeah, so I turned 21 about 2 weeks before filming started.
He barely made it. Made it. So, like, what's the interview question? Like, what in the part of the process? When do you say to yourself, like, internally, I made it?
I didn't, honestly. I was surprised. I mean, I was happy that I made it through. I was like, okay, there was one moment that I was like, so Dana was at the table at that time. Like, he's sitting at the table, is him, Joe Silva, and I forget who else, watching the grappling exchanges. So like, I have this grappling exchange, and like I said, I just wiped the floor with whoever I was with. I stand up, and I'm in like, rash guard, whatever. And I'm shredded at that time, but I was still light. And he looks at me and he goes, have you ever made 155? Dana, he stands up, he walks to me. He's like, have you ever made 155? And I was like, I've seen 155 on my way down to 145. And he was like, no fucking way. He was like, you don't fight at 45. And I was like, every single one of my fights is at 45. And he like walks back to the table and kind of, they have right. So like I wasn't that big of a 45er.
No, but you know what? You stood up to him. I bet you he respected it.
I think that he just was like, oh, this guy's, if he's like 455, like he's gonna be a monster, right? Like even again, I wasn't that big for 55. I wasn't big at all for 55, really, but whatever, something clicked. So he said something, got to the interview process, and the interview process was just like, what do you got going on? And I was like, this. He's like, we're like, well, what were you doing what were you doing last weekend? I was like, I went to it just so happened that I went to some like big thing in the city. And I was like, oh yeah, I was at this like event in the city and this person was there. It was like a bunch of celebrities and like whatever. So that was it. But like, I don't know. I really didn't think I was going to be on. So then I get a call however long later. And then they're like, come out to Vegas. Cause there's two parts to the tryout. There's that part. Then they fly out like 75 of the guys.
And you get sequestered in a hotel and you got to stay in your room for a little bit at this point, right?
So only before the drug test. So you go out there for the drug test and then you do another round of interviews and then you're just there.
Oh, they changed that. When I was there, it was like I was in prison.
Oh, well, it was probably in part because of like, so, I mean, I was no, you were before me, right? Yeah. So when I was there, no. So after the medicals are done, they're like, yeah, you're good. Go do whatever you want to do. Right. And by the way, I'm like broke, but I have a little bit. I'm like, what can I do? I want to go hang out. It's my first time in Vegas. And I'm there with, so my group ended up being, it was myself, Ally Quinta, Alex Caceres, and Jeff Lentz. And we're all broke. And we're like, and they're like, we got to find somewhere to like go, go drink, right? Whatever. And so Jeff is like, I found all you can drink, all you can eat, and all you can eat sushi and all you can drink sake place. So we like pack into a taxi, and I didn't really care about that, but I was like, whatever, I'm hanging out with them. So we pack into a taxi, we go to this place, we eat a bunch of food, bunch of sake, like whatever. And it turns out it wasn't all you can drink. It was buy one, get one. Yeah. So we ended up with this massive bill that like we're scraping together. And it's 15 minutes from our hotel in Vegas. So it's like a long trip through the desert and we can't afford a cab home. And we're like, what the fuck are we going to do? Right. So we start walking and we walked for about 3 hours through the desert to try to get back to our place. So finally I like called somebody or like whatever. And I managed to like scrape together some money and I called to get a cab. And it just so happened the same cab driver picks us up. He's like, well, how'd you guys get all the way over here? And we're like, we walked. And he's like, I'll spot you guys. He's like, he's like, that's pretty dangerous walking through the desert. Yeah. I'm like, yeah. And like, and at one point we were trying to like hitchhike. I was like, nobody's gonna pick us up. It's like, what do you? We're literally just walking through like the most motley crew. But anyway, yeah. So that was the experience there, and there was some tough guys that didn't make it on that season. Like Ali Quinta didn't make it on that season. A couple others. And
Charles Bennett didn't make it on. I thought for sure he was going to be on that season.
Was that same season? I don't remember.
He was there. He was definitely at tryouts. Yeah.
So anyway, so a couple weeks later, they just called and they're like, can you leave in 2 weeks or a week? It was like, literally they give you no time. And I was like, yeah, sure. Figure it out. And then I flew out there and it started. Yeah. It was interesting.
A lot of people attribute that their stay in the Ultimate Fighter House like it's prison. Did you also kind of get that feel?
What's interesting is I wouldn't call it like prison. I've never been to prison. But it's it's awkward for sure. It's awkward and also like a lot of guys on the show are trying to make their mark, right? And what was particularly annoying for me was, I'm not like a play it up for the camera guy. And once guys were starting to get eliminated, to like continue to do that, it was just like, all right, like enough, right? Like I just want to go home, but you got paid to stay there, right? Especially after I got eliminated. So like I got eliminated. I was really bummed when they did a wild card fight. And I was like, for sure it's gonna be me. Like, again, because I was one of the most competitive up to that point. And they gave it to Mark Stevens, who got choked out in 15 seconds, and then he got choked out again in like 20 seconds. Like it was crazy. But anyway,
I was supposed to fight Mark Stevens.
yeah, I remember.
And then he pulled out of the fight to be on The Ultimate Fighter.
Yep. Yeah. So anyway, so now you're just in the house, right? This is like a week and a half in, because the fights are pretty back to back, to make it move along. And then they want the fights later on to have more time in between. So you're just in the house. And that's when it's a little bit, it's tough to stay motivated, right? So to like keep training, because they want you to keep doing the whole thing, but you're like, all right, I've been eliminated. I can just order.
Okay, but they matched you up to get into the house. Did you know who your opponent was? Or okay, was you had Jason Brenton? He was 6-2 as an AMI, 6-0 as a pro.
Yeah, it was tough.
Like, yeah, he's definitely like. Well, I mean, anybody that gets there, there's a couple fish, but 95% of the people that get there.
Yeah. No, and he was tall. He was like, he had to have been like 6'2". Yeah. No, he was a good first fight, and I felt really good after that fight. Took him down, controlled the whole match pretty much, and then ended up finishing. And then I ended up on Koscheck's team, which I talked to St. Pierre later about, because I had trained with St. Pierre already. He was training with Danaher and Renzo's prior. So I asked him, I was like, why wouldn't you pull me onto your team? And he was like, oh, I figured give you the opportunity to work with different people. Like it's all about the experience. And I was like, no, George, I want to win. Right. And I was like, and now you guys know.
What is it? Well, you got blackballed by some tiny school, and
right. Imagine. Yeah. Yeah, no, he didn't. But John Danaher knew that I was a good grappler. So they put the other best grappler, most experienced grappler, the guy that could shut my game down, in Kyle Watson, right? So and again, that was another time that in my head I was like, oh, he's Matt Hughes's, the jiu-jitsu coach at Matt Hughes's gym, like he's this, to this day, like, do I think I could have beat him? Probably. I'm good friends with him now, but like, I still believe I could have, maybe with a different mindset, but I took his back in the first like minute. Right. And then, but I was like, he's too good. Like I had it in my head that he was too knowledgeable, that I wouldn't be able to finish him. And then it, just kind of didn't do what I needed to do.
He's an interesting guy. Like, he's from Southern Illinois. He's a black belt under Jack McVicker. He came up with like Dan Hornbuckle, Jeff Serafin. Serafin has got a wildly successful school here in the Chicagoland area. Kyle Watson has got a monstrosity of a business just outside St. Louis. Like he's doing really well for himself right now.
Kyle's crushing it. Yeah, we still talk regularly. I was at his gym when one of his original gym spots. Yeah, I trained with him. I actually went with him up to Montreal to train with George up there and the guys at TriStar.
Yeah, and like you get picked with John Fitch's team, Josh Koscheck, obviously, and it's Mark Stevens, Sivak Magnicom, Sako Chivichian, Nam Fan, and Aaron Wilkinson and Jeff Lenz. Like you've got like a personal connection with like three of those guys. Like,
I mean, at that time, not ton other than Lentz, because we were both on the local circuit. But yeah, I mean,
afterward, yeah.
I mean, Nam, the story with Nam is crazy, because Nam was the most successful from our team. He had the most success in the UFC, out of the Koscheck team. He was there for, I think 8 fights or 16 fights. I forget how many fights he had in the UFC. And then he he was the one that got me my first fight in Japan. And then I ended up fighting him for the title.
If you watch his fights with Leonard Garcia, both of them,
Yeah.
they're 100% UFC Hall of Fame worthy. They're unbelievable wars. Incredible chin, up a weight class. I think his odometer eventually caught up to him, but certainly somebody that I admire as a fighter, a true warrior.
Yeah. No, Nam was great. Yeah, unfortunately, I think he definitely he's pushed it too far. With but he had that mindset, and he just continued. He fought and fought and fought until they wouldn't let him fight anymore, and then he just went and fought in a different sport.
So Brian, when Andy leaves for the Ultimate Fighter, what were your thoughts? Like in regards to like how far he would go?
I mean, the Ultimate Fighter, it's so much of it's about matchups. And I knew he had two advantages. One is that the smaller person has an advantage in the Ultimate Fighter because you have to make weight so often. If you watch, so many people drop a weight class after the Ultimate Fighter after they win because of that. So I knew he could do very well there. I did remember thinking, man, if this was in 2 years, he would have this easy. But sometimes you got to take the opportunities when they present themselves. But what I really noticed was when he got back from the Ultimate Fighter, wherever he was going in, when he got back, the level of confidence and the level of just physicality that he developed went up levels. And he went from being a guy that I could kind of, I want to, sound arrogant, but he could be my restaurant if I wanted it to be, to being the guy that I wanted to avoid when I was getting tired. Cause I'm like, oh God, Andy's going to put it on me now. So yeah, I would definitely say after the Ultimate Fighter, I saw his whole game jump a level. And it's also when you're on that show, because I had it, it gives you a sight of the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And you're like, oh, I could actually make it there. You get to be around people like he was. You were telling me, you were like, there's this guy. No one's really heard of him, but I got to work with him. He's so good. Daniel Cormier.
Mm-hmm.
You were the first person to bring that up. And it's like you get to be around these people, and it's almost like you get some of their rub. And, that really inspired him and made him more dangerous afterwards.
Yeah. And it just opens so many doors. Like it just for a little while. And that's, again, I knew coming out of that, I'm like, okay, even though I didn't get pulled into the UFC at that time, which again, it might have, I try to write off as a blessing in disguise, like Brian said. I mean, the reality was I was a year into my professional career. All of those fights that you're talking about, I believe, were in the first year and a half.
You were too young. Like I don't want to sound rude when I say that, but like,
trust me, I fully believe that. Like while I was there, I was like, man, I'm hanging in, and I know and in the room, like I subbed everybody, and I was a purple belt. Like I was nowhere near the level that I would eventually get to. But I knew, I was like, if I had a year or 2 years more to develop some of my game, this wouldn't even been hard, I don't think.
So Joey, when I'm going through his career and I'm mapping everything out, I'm looking at him when he's 24 years old going, man, he's a seasoned veteran at this point in regards to his life experience, but it's almost as if it kind of came too quick, like Brian, like you had alluded to.
Right. Yeah, a lot happened really fast, 100%. And I mean, look, my career was basically over at 28, and it was fun. It wasn't over because I was starting to get I had lost my last fight, but I had I had a major knee surgery, right? I had a full not a replacement, but reconstruction of my ACL. And and then my career wasn't necessarily done, but then COVID hit, and I had invested a lot of time into building up my business and my other things too. So yeah, I mean and then I was inducted into the New Jersey Hall of Fame, which you can how serious what that means, whatever that means, but it that was all before 30, right? So I'm like,
no. Here, let's not diminish that. No, it's you're a seasoned veteran on paper,
Right. At
but your age doesn't match like
right.
what your experience. Like
Yeah,
it's
sure.
not.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true. And Brian, I think you'll attest to this as well. Here, December 4th, 2010. Let me get to the question before I make a statement. You're left off of the TUF finale.
Yeah.
Any conversations, like did they tell you weren't going to be on it, or did you just kind of find out by process of elimination?
They don't tell you, but we knew. So the owner of AMA at the time, Mike Constantino, was in touch with those guys, and he like at some point before they told me that I was not going to be on it, which again, like, was I bummed? Sure, but I also was like, great, now I can go, like, go on the local scene and build up. Like, I wasn't at this point, I wasn't really concerned. I was like, I'm gonna go do something, and build up the way that I need to build up, and I'll be back, right? Like, I was like, there was no part of me that, to be honest, if I'm being honest with myself, I was concerned about how I would perform in the UFC at that time. And even though, like, I wanted the opportunity, sure, would I have taken it? Absolutely. Who's gonna say no? But I was like, I recognized where I was at, and I recognized where I thought I could be in the next couple of years if I just had more time. So I wasn't totally bummed out about it. And I had other goals too. Like, I was like, I want to travel, and I want to take advantage of kind of the opportunity of being popular, but not being locked down to the UFC.
Yeah.
And that's where the Japan, saga started.
It's so interesting. Here, you go to Hit Squad, you go train with Kyle Watson. You guys, I think, were roommates. It's while on the Ultimate Fighter. You also train at TriStar, and then like there's people online.
He knows that you knew that I was sleeping in the same room as Watson.
Yeah,
This is pretty
MMA
good.
detective.
That's pretty good.
Brian, at
That's
some
good.
point you're gonna have to slide in. I mean, what the fuck? But the thing is, it's like when you go through the Wayback Machine,
Yeah.
there's a lot of noobs. I hate to use that term noob. I'm 50 years old, like hater or noob. I don't do, but there's a lot of noobs like in the comment section were like, well, you turned your back on AKA. And you were like, yeah, I was on a TV show with them. When the camera turns off, like that means I kind of go home.
Yeah.
It,
And
it was so
also,
strange.
yeah, so, well, I was, not necessarily AKA, but it was like the whole Koscheck thing. And look, like, the reality was, and I said it then, I'll say it now, like, Koscheck was there to continue to build his own name, like, it was the Koscheck show, where St. Pierre came in and was like, I'm going to create the best possible experience for my guys. And whatever comes of this, whatever it comes of it, right? Like, it wasn't about that. I'm going to bring in incredible training partners, incredible coaches, everybody that I've ever trained with that made a dent in my life. And it's all about them. It's not about me. And
Dude,
so, like, yeah.
all-star cast. Like he even brought in like the drunk kickboxer, Gene Charles
Everybody
Skarbowski.
loves John Charles. Yeah. John Charles was hilarious. But yeah, and Kos brought in obviously some good coaches, and Cormier was awesome, right? Like, meeting Cormier, and he was right at the beginning of his career. Was he in Strikeforce in the beginning, or was it
Strikeforce?
Yeah. It was Strikeforce. Yeah, I literally was in the room with him picking his shorts for, like, his walkout. And then, again, he's another guy that, I mean, he was a high level wrestler. I should have known at the time, but he becomes one of the best ever, right? So, it was a great experience. But yeah, no, like, there was no allegiance to, like, the AKA team or anything like that. Like, I barely connected with them, where I and again, I was already training with St. Pierre's.
It's regional.
Yeah.
Henzo's was a short car ride away.
Right.
AKA's on the other side of the country.
Right.
I still remember when you were able to get me to. Oh, did we lose him?
No, he's good.
Oh, you were able to get me into Henzo's, and you walk in, and I go, bro, you're not going to believe it. There's this guy in the locker room. looks just like could be George St. Pierre's brother. And we're like, yeah, bro, that's George St. Pierre. I was like, get the hell out of here.
Yeah. No, it was neat. There was a lot of people that would drop in that were like real, definitely at Henzo's, even at AMA, like you'd have like just random drop-ins that you were like,
Eduardo Tellez.
I was gonna say Eduardo Tellez, who at that time was one of the, some jiu-jitsu royalty. We're like, does that Tellez just dropping in for MMA training? Ryan Hall,
I drove Ryan Hall there.
Did you? Yeah. Like, and then obviously all the other guys. But yeah, Henzo's was like that. It was a cool time to be around and to not know, which like almost makes it better now, right? Like to not know at that time who you were dealing with in the room. Sometimes you knew, but for the most part, you were just like, yeah, this is just some guy that I'm training with, and then they end up being one of the best ever.
So Joey, all right. I probably should have said this earlier. So you're talking about maybe not getting pictures with Khabib or, some of the other people that you worked out, Amanda. You also cornered Dillon Danis in his fight against Jake Paul.
Yeah. Dillon, yes, I did.
On how much?
I mean, he's a character. I mean, he's...
Yeah. Well, I've known Dillon since he was 13, 14 years old. He was... he was in my classes and when I was teaching at AMA, I saw him come up, and it was funny because you can, I know you guys already talked to Jim, but like there was a point at which like Dillon was very arrogant, and he knew he was going to be really good.
I don't believe this.
What?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know, but and there was a point at which I was like, Mike Constantino was like, oh, Dillon thinks, within 8 months, he's tapping Jim Miller. And I was like, Jim might have a little bit more than 8 months, but I was like, within 18 months, none of us will ever be able to tap him ever again. And like,
you remember the training session?
Really?
There was a time where we used to beat Dillon up, and then there was a time where he was getting ready for some big jiu-jitsu event. And it was you, me, and there might have been a third person, but he just
wiped the floor with everybody.
Beat the brakes off us, and we were like, "What happened?"
Yeah, no, it was not even. You could see the writing on the wall. You could see how fast he was getting good. And here's the thing. Here's what, and it is, the path that he chose to take. It's like you can criticize it, but he makes it work for himself in some capacity. And whatever it is, and I'm not going to judge him for it. But
I'm going to be honest with you, I've got no problem with the guy at all. Like I've only met him one time. He was cordial.
If you know him personally, you know that he's very different. Like in these types of one-on-one situations, he's very loyal to his friends. But again, like he's a tough guy to kind of hang with, right? Because there's anywhere you go, you're going to end up in an altercation. But this is later, right? Back then,
he was shy and quiet.
Yeah. He was, and he was very good. And the only other person that I ever trained with that I felt the same was Gordon Ryan. So Gordon Ryan used to come to my gym. I used to train down with, again, it would be like me, Gary Tonin, and Gordon, and sometimes my brother. And Gordon was around the same age when I met him, 16, maybe 15. And I trained with him. And same thing, like could wipe the floor with him. Obviously, he's a 15, 16-year-old, 17-year-old. But I knew right away, I was like, this kid's going to be phenomenal. But it wasn't just his ability, right? It was like the whole package. He could, like he's improving at a ridiculously fast pace. But also like these guys have like gigantic bones. Like Dillon, like if you grab him, it's like grabbing somebody's ankle. Like you're like, they have these mitts of hands. Like he just was like physically unique. And there's not a ton of people that like I've run into that like have that are just like big, but still small enough to be like 185 pounds, right? Or 170 pounds. And you're just like, how? Like, and it was the combination of that and then just like the absolute resilience. Like they were not tapping unless you near killed them, right? And you might call them dumb for that, but like, that's not the greatest way to stay healthy. But at the same time, like that mindset makes you very, very hard to tap, if especially at that age when you're flexible and the whole thing. Now for Dillon at least, that eventually led to doing that in a competition that wrecked his knee and was I think the main thing that set him off in the direction that he went, because throughout this time he was always one of the best grapplers in the world at his rank and everything else. But after that, he was no longer, like, he wasn't on the scene. He was hurt all the time. But he was still really popular, and he was still talking the talk and doing the whole thing, and that's when it became like Dillon the heel. But there was a lot of that. Like, that's actually, there's a long story around that. I'm sure you guys got a lot of it already, but yeah, he was.
I respect him. I respect him.
At one point, like, in my opinion, could have been one of the best grapplers in the world. If not was, he just never quite made it.
One notch below.
Yeah, he was one notch.
It was like Leandro Lowe, he would lose to him by 2 points.
Right.
He'd face Gordon, he'd lose to him by judge's decision, you
Right.
know? And then there was just, Gary was just one of these guys who, which with a lot of people, he just had a one-up on someone. He had his way to find to the leg.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, Prime Dillon was just a notch below. And I always wonder, in a different timeline, he never meets Connor, and he stays in the good graces of Marcelo. What could have been.
Right. Yeah. Yep. No,
I hope he wins. Like this. I don't know the guy. I've got no connection or attachment with him.
For that fight, though, how did that come about? In that there was not a lot of advance notice.
No. Well, so the thing is at that time he was taking these fights before he had any plan of how he was going to train for them. So he called me. So basically he got the opportunity to fight Logan. He knew it was going to be a big fight. And I don't actually know, like, if he called me for like a comfort factor, just to have one of the original guys that he knows he can trust, that, I don't need anything from him. I don't want anything from him. And I'm just happy to support and see him do well. Or like, if he was like, literally, I don't have anybody to coach me. Can you come coach me? So like, I didn't really know what I was going there for entirely. So he called me and said, hey, do you want to come out and, be in my corner? And I was like, of course, like, I'll show up. So I go, and it's myself, Phil Hawes, and then I forget who he had, one of the guys from out there, Q something, can't remember his name. But anyway, a fighter from out there. And he every day is like, Andy's going to be my main corner. And then he'd be like, no, Phil's going to be the main corner. And then he'd be like, well, I kind of like the way that Andy talks to me in between, because we're training with him, and I have no idea what training he's done, but he's in reasonably good shape, and he can hit hard. And like, I'm like, dude, I've watched Logan. I've seen him fight. I'm like, he's not that good. He's juiced up, and he's full, and he's blown up. I was like, you just have to survive the first round. And then I was like, and then just let go on him. I was like, you can, it'll be competitive at best. You might even beat him. You might even knock him out, because he's going to get exhausted. What I didn't account for was for him to do that, and then he get exhausted, just kind of shelling up, and then not really doing much. But it is what it is. And also, like, I didn't know, like, if he at any point ever intended on really fighting, or if he was just going to kind of like survive and then just make a show of it at the end, right? Which is ultimately what he did. And he never talked to me about it.
I hope he wins.
It was a good payday.
Yeah, I mean, I hope he wins. At the end of the day, I want him to win. Like, I really do
too. We do too. And
yeah,
I again, like, even like getting banned from the UFC now and stuff, it's like, I don't like why, like, but again, he's got these opportunities. He's going to make some money. He's got 6 million followers on Instagram. Like, he's going to be okay as long as he's good mentally. Because here's the thing, and and I do have love for him as a person, is that, like, I know deep down he's a true fighter. He's a true martial artist. He's not just this guy that's just all talk. He's a legitimately true, and the reason he is the way that he is because of how seriously he took it from the time he was 13 years old. And it truly bothered him to not be in the scene, not be getting after it for that period of time that he was dealing with the injuries, because I think he had a surgery that failed, and then he had to like redo
He
the
didn't
surgery.
have surgery at first. He
Right.
tried to, Dr. Robin wanted to do it and he kind of shunned him away, went with a different surgeon. Then it failed.
Yeah. So yeah, so like I know that absolutely messed with him for a long time to not be able to be participating. So now he's participating. He's got, you know, a couple wins or a win under his belt, and I would love to see him to continue to do well.
Yeah, I hope he wins. Here's the thing that largely goes untalked about with the Ultimate Fighter and the contracts. So you get left off the finale. It's December 4th, 2010. It's got to be a little bit bittersweet. But if you look at like the main event outside of like the TUF winners, it's Stephan Bonnar versus Igor Pork-Arjak. Dude, I've been, dude, I am freaking beyond tired, and I've been struggling with names this entire like interview. I wholeheartedly apologize for that.
No
So
worries.
Stephan Bonnar, like he wins the fight. His purse is 31,000 a show, 31,000 a win. His opponent, who's 1-2 in the UFC, makes $85,000.
Mm-hmm. Because of the UFC, the Ultimate Fighter contract.
Dude, it's an absolute and like, oh, there's bonuses, there's back, all this other bullshit. It is so insulting to read that number, especially with somebody like Stephan Bonnar.
Yeah.
Like it hurts me to read that.
Yeah. I mean, look, they were the only game in town, and they utilized it. And you know, I have mixed feelings about, not like, you know, like that's crazy, especially at that time, and you know what Stephan Bonnar had already kind of done for the UFC, in my opinion. But you know, like the fighter pay thing has always been like a back and forth. Like now that there's this massive conglomerate and like everything, like I get it, yeah, and the fighters should be making more.
Well, it was your teammates that did this from the Ultimate Fighter, John Fitch and that whole crew. Well, mostly John Fitch,
Yeah,
Koscheck. They're the ones that really got the ball rolling.
yeah. Right. And it's tough, but you know, like here's the thing that I'll say about the UFC that's unique from other professional sports. And I do consider this when I think about this stuff, because obviously it's like, yeah, I would love fighters to get paid, and now they're, you know, multi-billion-dollar company, the whole thing. But fighting is not like other sports where like you've done what effectively is, you know, thousands and thousands of hours in games, right, of time. Like think about like somebody that makes it to the NFL, right? Somebody that makes it to the NHL or whatever. How many games have they played to get there, right? You have fighters that have short amateur careers, 3 to 5 fights, short pro careers, 3, 4, 5-1, 5-0, 6-0, and then they're in the UFC. They are totally invested with less than 10 fights, right? And they're nobody. That's the reality. Most of them are nobody, right? So I understand that what the UFC has to do that's a little bit different, which I do consider, is that they're basically taking what is effectively an amateur person and then turning them into a superstar, you know, and like they're the only, and especially back then, they were the only marketing machine, right? So it's like you get in, and again, it was like comically low, right? And I agree, like should any fighter be fighting in the UFC who's like the Premier League for $3,000 at the time? No, that's insane, right? But at the same time, it was like some of the times guys would go in and be like, you know, I should be making the UFC is a, you know, both billion-dollar company. I should be making you know, 6 figures every single fight. And I'm like legitimately, I'm like, why? Why do you think that? Right? Like you need to go, like I almost feel like the UFC should have a B league and then an A league within its own organization, where like the A league has like a starting salary of like, you know, multi 6 figures. So there's a very clear delineation, because I sort of feel like it's just like we're scooping everybody up from all over the place. And some of these fighters are going to be worth millions of dollars. A lot of these fighters have no business being here, but it's just kind of like we pull from all over the place. You understand what I'm saying?
Joey, he ain't lying. He
it's true.
is 100% not lying. I Brian, would you like to weigh in on this?
Well, I feel like a Dana White Contender Series would be better if it was developed as an actual brand and series rather than like a UFC tryout. Everyone is there like, oh, I'm going to get on Dana White Contender Series. I'm going to have like one fight and then I'm in the UFC, or two fights, I'm going to be in the UFC. And Dana White marketed that after Tuesday night fights. And it's like Tuesday night fights, you could be a staple of Tuesday night fights back in the day until you showed yourself as capable of being in maybe a HBO or a Showtime boxing. Whereas I feel like you need those three letters, UFC, UFC, UFC. So yeah, I agree with them. There should be something where people can prove themselves more. But at the same time, I entered into ChatGPT and I asked ChatGPT, I said, hey, using the NHL's market share, profits, and payouts, if the UFC copied the NHL payout, what would the average UFC make considering all factors of revenue and salaries? And it was 4.5 million.
Yeah.
So it's like
there's
the amount of money that the UFC brings in versus the amount of money some of the people make. I don't know. For me, I'd be embarrassed as a company to be in that situation.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And I think that like your fighters should at least be able to I think that at a bare minimum, they should have like an average worker's salary.
Not qualify for stamps.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Well, you know, just because like you've got an app where they have to trace exactly where you are, and within 24 hours you have to report your whereabouts so they can fly someone there to take a drug test, doesn't make you an employee. I mean, think about that logic. Like, wait, are you not even a free person to go wherever you want because some dude might be helicoptered in to give me a drug test where it's not like across the board? And
I do laugh at that because I have the state of New York right now saying that a guy that I had teaching 2 days a week jujitsu has to be an employee. They can't be an independent contractor. Meanwhile, guys will have an entire career in the UFC for 20 years and they're still independent contractors.
Yeah, Jim Miller's about to make 50 fights. Not an employee. Wild. Hey, and Jeff Novitzky, and listen, I've gone on this rant before, so I'm going to keep it real short. This guy was going through the garbage of Lance Armstrong 5 years after his last competitive race to bust him with drugs. Gets hired by the UFC as like an independent, like resource person in regards to like drugs, and then there's a pulsating picogram. If he would have caught a pulsating picogram at Lance Armstrong, oh my God, he would have loved it. It would have been the exact opposite of what we experienced in that situation. Like he said, he's a coward. Maybe I'll meet him one day. Maybe I won't. I'll be cordial. He's a coward. Fuck you.
Snitch.
Fuck you. Yeah, it's just.
Stop sugarcoating it, Mike.
I don't. Anyway, it's been 90 minutes. Andy, man, I'm going to be honest with you, man. Like looking at your career and the maturity that you had and the life experiences in such a short period of time, it's incredibly impressive. And there's like so much more. I mean, Joey,
we haven't even got to Japan yet.
No, we haven't even got to Japan.
You haven't even gotten to the interesting stuff.
No.
Yeah. Like the bulk, the interesting part.
I mean, do you got time? Like we got time, but we don't know if you do. I mean, you got a kid.
No, my kid's asleep. Probably a long drive home, but I mean, you could sleep at my house if you want to. It's up to you. Yeah,
I'm a dude. We're in.
Let's go.
We're invested. Yeah, fuck yeah, dude. Here, after that, you get Bobby Reardanz. You talked about fighting in Indiana. You got Mike Constantino, and you have you've got Kyle Watson in your corner.
Yeah.
What was your experience with them?
Yeah, so that was they flew me out, main event for that card, fight their local boy, and he was a tough dude, but
the believer.
Yeah, the believer. Yeah. And that was so I showed up. They showed up. They met me with a truck and they just gave me a truck. They're like, it's a long trip to get anywhere around here. And just kind of left me out there in the middle of nowhere. The other guy, Mike flew in, I think like a day later, and then Kyle came down. That was the fight that I was talking about, that they used the wrong lights. So there was like a number of things about that event. Like the event itself, like it packed out. Like it was a packed. It was packed out. There was a girl on the card that became
Police Herring.
Police Harrigan. Yeah, yeah. So she was on the card too, and people were interested. But yeah, so that was the card that had the wrong lights, that everybody's back and feet were getting melted off. The doctor situation was really weird. I like got pseudo molested by this doctor and like the pre-fight medicals. Like
Joey, he is not
We've
lying.
heard about this guy before.
No,
right?
no. This is a different guy. This is a different guy.
Pervert.
Dude,
Okay.
so I'm not going to name any names, but this guy would also have like an assistant that was clearly an escort. Like this was like, he's like a real short. It's the girl, whoever his assistant is.
Yeah, no, that's what happened to me.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. He told me, he was like, she's like, in training, and then like did more of a medical test. And I was just like, I like have like I was like, this isn't regular medical. You're supposed to just make sure my hands aren't broken and shit. Like my heart rate isn't too high. Like, what are you doing here? And
they wanted to make sure you didn't have a hernia.
Standing there like this, and I'm just like, this is ridiculous.
She was hot. Was she hot? She had to have been hot.
Not in any.
I mean, not for us married guys, but like other people, like Brian would think.
I don't remember. I really don't remember. I just remember being like, just focus on the fight, like whatever. Eventually, this guy will take his hand off your sack. Like it's like it was weird. He's like, yeah, I gotta check for hernias, and I was like,
with a glove or without?
With a glove. With a glove.
At least you got that. I know some people that got no glove with him.
Yeah. Anyway, but fight goes on, and that fight. So I went hard on strength and conditioning for that fight, but I told you that the ring had to have been near 180 degrees. Like it was so hot inside. Like I told him to turn off the thing. That lasted about 5 minutes. Once I was on the mat, it was ridiculously hot. But went through the fight, and Bobby put up a tough fight, and I for some reason like couldn't, like, even though I was beating him the entire fight, he was actually talking to me the entire fight, and like he's like, you're doing really good. He's like, you're gonna win this fight easy, blah blah blah, blah. And I'm just like, shut the fuck, trying to fit. And then I go back after the second round before the third, and I'm like, my legs are dead. I don't know what I'm gonna do. So but right before the third, or in the third round, I go to take a shot, and I just fall flat on my face. Like my legs were not working. And I'm like, this kid's going to beat me. He's going to TKO me. Like he snapped me down. He took my, got kind of towards my back. He starts hitting me. And I'm like, I cannot lose to this guy right now. I'm coming off the Ultimate Fighter. I felt like a superstar, and managed to armbar him. Like I just kind of like fell into position, grabbed the armbar, finish. And I am dead, and I'm hot, and the whole thing. And then he wants to pray, right? So he like pulls me in, and it's like he's like praying for like 5 minutes, and then they announce me, and they try to interview me, and I'm wearing a hat, and I'm like, I'm gonna puke, and I'm just like, what do I do? So I pulled my hat off, and I puke into my hat right in the middle of the interview
with the sponsor's name on it. That's my favorite thing.
Yeah, with my sponsors.
I saw that.
Say any publicity is good publicity.
Dude, so I sent this to Joey earlier.
Yeah.
I'm like, never mind the fight. Go right to the decision and watch the post-fight interview. And dude, you're like, first time I go, dude, it is the best. It is the friggin' best, dude.
Yeah. So that was a good one. And that while I was out there, actually, I don't know if it was the exact same trip. I think I was out there for something else, maybe training with Kyle Watson. But I went out for like another amateur fight, and it was one of those, like, they did like police versus the firefighters, but then like people didn't show up, and it was in a barn, and then they started pulling people out of the crowd to fight. And then like the guy, the promoter, was wearing like one of those piano style, like with the tails, like jackets. I was like, where am I? What is going on out here? And Matt Hughes's gym is like 40 minutes up the road. I'm like, this is insane out here. This is the true Wild West of fighting. Like I thought, like I started in the Wild West in New Jersey, but New Jersey was actually pretty refined, relatively speaking, because we had the commission that was pretty far ahead. These
Joey,
places had no commission.
what he's describing, I would be at every single weekend. I loved it.
Midwest shit.
Yeah, it's my area. Yeah, it's my area. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's within 3 hours of me, so I would go. Right. So, just a little side note: do you know who the announcer was for that event that you fought at?
I don't remember.
The guy that does ONE FC right now, Ray Flores.
Oh yeah, Ray Flores.
He was the ring announcer, and he's absolutely terrible. Like where he was at that point actually was much better than when he started. And where he's at right now, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
Like it's just you can see just like the leveling up. Ray's done very well for himself. Yeah,
that's good. Yeah, I will be impressed if you know about this organization, but I was part of a organization called WMMA.
Wait. It was teams. It was. You're talking about the team sports where there's affiliations with the cities.
So that was the goal. Yeah. So it was
never heard of it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so total my father was an investor, and
is this the thing Mike was doing with Alliance? Or
no. So Alliance MMA.
Wait. Let's start with this because my Alliance question is coming up next because I heard you were an investor there. But go ahead with this first.
Yeah, well, I was. Oh yeah, I'll tell you about that.
Let's go both. So, this is phenomenal.
So WMMA was this guy, Mike Daspin, who was a mergers acquisitions guy, but ultimately he was just a criminal and a scammer. And he started this thing and literally, we're pretty sure targeted my dad because of the experience with MMA. With me, he started looking up people in the area, found me, found my dad, like whatever, targeted him, said, I have this idea, gave him the whole pitch. And he had some money, put money into it, and then got my dad as an early investor, and then put together as far as like a C-suite goes, like a rock star team. He hired the guy whose name was Barry something out of I think Texas, who had run a Strike Force event and a bunch of small events. I can't remember his last name.
Weiss, was it Barry Weiss?
I can't remember his last.
Go ahead.
Name. Might be, but. Bigger guy, and he so hired him. So like there was like a lot of pieces of it that looked legit, and the idea, to make a long story short, was that they were going to build up like regional tournament style from the existing organizations.
We may ask, did he mention health insurance for fighters?
Probably at some point. But
Joey, what do we say about that? What do we say about that?
Everybody tries. Like IFL, right?
Anybody that says health insurance for fighters, jump out of the moving car.
Get away.
Jump. If you're on a speedboat in the middle of the ocean, start swimming. Get away. Yeah.
Well, the only reason I brought that up is because Ray Flores was who he hired for the first event. But long story short is he basically we put on like one event in Texas that was like massive, and it was actually great. And we there's like the whole military in Texas, the whole military like was packed out. It was a pretty cool event, but they spent all the money. And that was his intention, was to kill the company in one event. And then the mergers acquisitions guy took a percentage every time he raised money. So he just, he would raise 200,000 here, 100,000 here, like whatever. He raised, I don't know, altogether like $3 million, took like 20% of it in cash. And then, they convinced everybody to like shoot themselves out of a cannon, even though I was sitting there with very little experience in terms of business. But I was like, I think this is a really bad idea. You're not the UFC. This isn't going to work out. You should probably start small and then build from there. And that whole thing crashed. Big Sexy fought on that event. Sean McCorkle.
Yeah.
And a couple other like, well, but
now I remember the story.
Yeah, so it was crazy. But anyway, Flores was the announcer. But no, so that segued into
Alliance
MMA, which I had a feeling was a crock of shit. But and also again, like maybe it's just being around it, and I started learning how to invest, and I knew the lingo a little bit. So when Mike originally told me about it. He's like, we're going to change the game, like the whole thing. Like he was really excited about it. I was like, cool, but he wouldn't really tell me what it was, you know? And I was like, what is it? Like, what is the business? I don't really understand. He's like, oh, we're going to get all these different regional promotions. We're going to put them all under the same banner and like this whole thing. And I was like, all right, whatever.
Wait, and a little side note, the organization you fought for in Indiana, Mike Constantino made the contact there. They were also included in that.
Yes,
so go ahead.
Yeah, I knew that. So ultimately what that was just it was creating an umbrella and then signing like these promotions telling them you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything except for like let us sponsor your event and then say you're part of our organization. But and this I don't know exactly how they structured it like legally or how they tried to paint it, but they basically started claiming everybody's income as their own income, right? So, you know, we have 10 different promotions. They all make, let's just for round number, they all make $1 million in revenue a year. My company makes $10 million of revenue in a year. And it's like, no, it doesn't, right? So when they called me to invest, they started lying, right? The guy who was calling and asking for investors didn't know anything about anything as far as MMA goes. He was just trying to sell stock shares. So he calls me and he's like, you know, you're going to have front row seats to CFFC, the premier organization, and you're going to get to meet Mike Constantino. I was like, I'm still like Mike Constantino. I train at his gym. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
You know, and then he tried to the big one was they told me that Burt Watson was single-handedly responsible for the $4.5 billion sale of the UFC. And I was like, sir, I know Burt Watson. Burt Watson was the babysitter of the fighters. Like he was just a runner. What are you talking about? And he was like, no, he had a hand in it. And now he's involved in Alliance, AMMA, Alliance MMA. So anyway, it reeked of
Okay. All right.
I did not invest in that.
We know people that put
All
up.
right. So Joey, at this time, and if you listen to the Josh Neer post fight, I kind of get into what happened to me in regards to legal wranglings prior to this. So prior to them, I've done about 250 shows here in the Midwest. Like I said, I've got a pretty good resume, and this was pitched to me initially, and I just started asking like really direct and hard questions.
Yeah.
And I just told the guy, "Go, hey, listen, man." I'm like this, like clap. Listen, man. I'm in law enforcement. I got in bed with a guy that thought he can get over on me. It was kind of an arduous 2.5 year battle between he tried to steal my company, all these other things. I got him 8.5 years taken off of his life because he's sitting in prison. I said, this kind of sounds like one of those deals. Like, if you want to get in bed with me, that's fine. But like, I can give you like my resume administratively, but I can also kind of give you a little bit of background with people that I've had really bad business dealings with. And he called back one more time. And I'm just like, dude, this just doesn't pass a snip test. And then he went with the organization in Indiana. Like there was nothing going on there that seemed right. And then I'll put his name out there. Jeremy Bjornberg is one of the secondary matchmakers for the LFA. I've done business with this guy for like 20 years. I loved Jeremy. Like anything that Jeremy puts his name on, I'll co-sign. Jeremy calls me up and he's like, no, dude, I was just in their office 3 months ago. They had a stack of like 15 MacBooks that were like, he's like, I Googled it. They're like $4 or $5 grand a piece. He's like, I just went back. That same stack hasn't been touched and they keep adding to it. It's like these people just keep spending money. And he's like, I think they're falsifying like documents in order to get more people to buy stock because it was on the stock market.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing. Yeah, they were trying to sell stock and you know, like I mean, it would be a long-term pump and dump because they have to hang on to their stock for 2 years. But yeah, I just was like, yeah, I wouldn't go anywhere near this. And then I saw the infighting start to happen publicly, and I was like, yeah, this is.
Did anyone go to jail? I haven't, Joey. This would be a good deep dive for us, grabbing some of the people administratively that got burned. Did anyone go to jail for that? I don't know if they did or not.
Nobody went to jail.
That's shocking.
That's shocking. And I'm more curious, like, to the people that invested. Like, I actually don't know like who invested. Like, I heard Tiger Schulman did, but I would have been surprised because I know he didn't trust Mike with a 10-foot stick.
Elwig was pretty deep in.
Oh God, that's terrible. See, well, that's terrible if he invested. Yeah. No, it's
I think it was more like the IPO, the initial public offering. Like it was just people buying stock and they were falsifying their gains.
yeah, I mean, maybe during that time, but again, they were calling people in the industry. And that was what was like, I was like, how is nobody talking about this? I called Mike right away. I was like, Mike, your guy just called me and told me that Burt Watson was responsible for the sale of the UFC. What you guys are like blatantly lying to sell stock. Oh, he's just a salesperson. And I was like, Mike, this is fraud. I don't want it. I don't want anything to do with this. Please don't. Please tell your people. And I was just like, and also you're calling people in the industry that like know who you are. Like it's not like, and then that was, again, like I didn't have like a fallout with Mike, but I definitely started to distance myself at that point.
Well, so there's a guy in the Midwest, Victory J was his name. Jay Schneider, he owns nitrotickets.com. So Victory J is as old school as it gets. He's been on our show a few times, sitting in as a second. And one of the people involved with that screwed him out of his own promotion. And it was just like off the bat. I'm like, man, Jay has got a phenomenal reputation, and this guy's going to step on him. I'm like, come on, bro.
Yeah, it was a strange time. I don't know.
You go to Alliance in San Diego, you try Syndicate in Las Vegas. Dude, here's the thing. And I don't want to be rude, but like I talked about your age. Here's the strange thing. You beat Bobby Reardanz. You fight Felipe Arantes. Felipe Arantes gives you an illegal blow.
Yeah.
It's a no contest. And he gets signed to the UFC where he has like a 12-fight career.
Yeah.
He goes 5-6-1 in the UFC. It's like, well, like he was bogus. Like, how were they? Did you feel snubbed?
So I do think that it's a little tougher once you've been, on TUF. Like you got to do some work to get back in. If you're not pulled back in. He went down to 35 though. So after he fought me, I don't know if he had any other fights before the UFC, but he was decent and he
went right from you to the UFC.
Yeah, so I think he got pulled in for a 35-pound fight, or maybe he did one fight, and again, it might have just been timing. I have really no idea.
Was he part of that Macaco Gold team?
Think so, yeah.
There was this Macaco had a gym in Jersey that he was kind of at and kind of in Brazil. And it was like you would just get offered Brazilian ringers. And I remember I got offered, I think $1,000 to fight Edson Barboza in Ring of Combat, and he was Macaco Gold.
Yeah.
And it was like
what a deal.
It's almost like now people are hip to the Dagestanis. They're like, if someone has an Islamic first name and a Russian last name and it ends in Av, Kav, or Mav, don't fight them. No. But like sometimes it was you wanted to fight, you needed to make some noise because you were on the UFC's radar, and it was like, all right, I guess I'm fighting a Brazilian ringer. I had to end up fighting Hene after TUF, and so you had to fight Felipe.
Yeah. So he got in. I mean, so a number of things happened in terms of like getting back into the UFC. So again, it wasn't my primary concern. So that fight happened and he kneed me in the head, but I also broke my foot. It was kind of like, so the funny thing is he kneed me in the head, which again, probably just better off that I didn't continue fighting. But like I took some damage in that fight from me hitting him. And then he hit me in the head while my knee down, and then whatever, I don't know, he gets pulled, but again, there was no real rhyme or reason, like, and that was like the whole thing. So I at some point during this, I don't remember that you probably have it in front of you, but I get the opportunity to go to Japan, right? So like that's becomes like, I was like, I want to go out to Japan. I had like put it out there, and then Nam, you know, they wanted Nam to put together like an American team versus like their
It's
team.
gonna be Team Alpha Male versus Team Nam Pan, remember?
Yeah, Hioki Aoki is your first opponent in Japan.
Yeah.
What an incredible experience.
Yeah. No, so I got to go back in time, right? Like I got to go back, fight in the ring because they were still fighting in the ring with the old rules, you know, like I
Was
didn't
it
really
like rope escapes and everything?
not rope escapes, but like you had no, it was MMA rules, but you had you had like you were still allowed to like kick the head of grounded opponents and I forget
Knees to the head.
and knees to the head. Like
A
it was
real monotone ring announcer. Yeah, it was.
yeah. So now there were some disadvantages, but it was what it was, which was A, they wanted me to go back up a weight class. B, it was on like 3 or 4 weeks notice. And C, since Nam was technically my corner for that, they wouldn't fly in a corner, which is so like I was talking about it with Brian, and Brian's like, well, I've never been to Japan. I'll pay my own way because I just like at the time couldn't. I was like, if I win, and it was no money, like it was like a crazy, like
They were basically paying to fly you out there.
yeah, they were paying to fly you out, and that was it. And then you know, I think they paid me $1,000. And they were like, if you win, we'll pay you a little bit more. If you become the champion, we'll pay you like 30 grand, right? Like that was the jump. It was like you got to become the King of Pancrase. But yeah, so Brian comes with, and that's how that whole, you know, that whole thing started. And that was an interesting time.
Did they let you keep the belt?
No.
They never do. They never do.
No,
They never
Which
do.
actually, so again, it was like they let me keep it for like an hour. Like they were like, here you go. And they're, you know, walking around taking pictures and like this legendary belt, you know. And then they're like, yeah, we're gonna take that back. And they gave me like a number to like call to have one made and sent it home.
Did they actually come through with that?
Oh yeah, I have a belt here. Yeah, but it's a replica.
That's cool. Did they give you like the Pancrase jumpsuit like you saw Semi Schilt wear when he fought in the UFC?
No, I don't think so. No.
Yeah.
No, I could barely get, I had to pay for the gloves.
Man, we got lucky that we didn't get kicked out of there on our first interaction. We get there, not speaking any Japanese, obviously, and they assign you a liaison. And
So the liaison you have to tip.
well, she was cool, Mayumi.
Yeah,
So she was they kind of make her your manager, so she gets a cut, whatever it happens to be. She was great, but she's not there yet. And so we go to like every Gold's Gym in Tokyo has like an MMA gym built into it. And so we're going there. I don't have any tattoos. He's got a whole bunch, and tattoos at this point, I don't know if it's changed, but they are not kosher in Japan.
Yep.
And he has a long sleeve shirt on, and it's warm. That much ink is showing. And you'd have thought that we, you know, were flashing gang signs. So we're trying to get into the Gold's Gym just to work out. And they're pointing to the sign that says, we do not allow visible tattoos and we'll remove anyone with one. But in parentheses, it says exceptions for foreigners and special events. So we're trying to like pantomime our way in. We think we do it. We work out. The next day, Pancrase sends you a letter. What did they say in it? Like that we said we were Yakuza and kicked the door down and flipped everyone off and said we're not paying.
Yeah. Oh, well, no. So like, yeah, we were trying to get in, and then I was like, okay, like how much? Like, well, how do I pay? I don't know. Like I had money. I'm like, here's the yen. Like, and they just like, we didn't know how to do it.
And
so
she was like, go, go, go.
she was like, go, go, go. So
he's in fear for her life, we find out.
yeah,
later.
yeah. So we go in and then we just leave. And
Thinking that we did a good job.
yeah. We're like, we stayed in the back. We like kept the lights off. Meanwhile, by the way, you remember there was two funny things. One is like you had bodybuilders there that were literally in like the skimpy freaking mankini thing, walking around the gym, like flexing in the mirrors, like basically naked. And then there were little old ladies that were the janitor in the men's locker room, like walking around like hunched over.
There's 100 naked guys, and there's the Japanese equivalent of Quasimodo, the female Japanese equivalent coming, parting the sea of naked men to sweep up. And my favorite thing was watching every American foreigner be there for the first time, because at a certain point we were grizzled veterans, and just looking at the shock on their face. And everyone was like, what? It's the cleaning lady. It's Miss Yoda. What are you looking at?
Exactly. But like I would, and then even in there at one point we went into like a hot tub for like a minute and they were like, "Sir, get your shirt on." Or like, I would get changed in the locker room and they'd be like, "Please like stand in the far corner and
All right.
turn."
Brian, you and I have talked quite a few times. I think I can have this conversation with you. So I got a buddy that went over there and he was just like to study. And he's like, every single time I used a public restroom, he's like, I would have somebody like peeking over, staring at me. Did you see that happening there? Or was he just kind of like in the wrong places using the bathroom?
We didn't experience that. We had like there was a bunch of weird stuff, like you had vending machines with like used panties in them.
What I'll say is this.
Yeah.
The Japanese are extremely polite, but if something is out of the ordinary, they stare and gawk at you.
Yeah.
So his first fight, he goes, he wins. And there's a lot we can even say about the first fight, how they were doing their best to put the fix in, but whatever. The second time he fights, his face is a mess. And we go out and he's like, well, he decides to stay because Japan, they don't care when they fly you back. So you kind of get a free vacation out of it. So he was like, well, what can we do? I was like, oh, I went to Asakusa and I toured the whole samurai city in a rickshaw and the guy gave a cultural tour. He's like, oh, cool, we'll do that. And then we're riding together in this rickshaw.
Yeah.
And then I don't pay any mind to it, but people are like staring at us.
Yeah.
But he notices, he goes, bro, do you see how everyone's staring at us? And it was almost like our rickshaw driver, he spoke English, but he was kind of like almost snickering to himself. And I'm like, yeah, they're staring at you because you got bruises all over your face. You're like, nah, man, look at the other rickshaws. You're like, it's guy and girl, or it's family. And so then you turn to the guy and you're like, hey, man, let me ask you.
Yeah.
Is it normal for two guys to ride in a rickshaw together? And the guy had been holding it in. He drops us and goes, no, it's not totally gay.
Yeah.
And he laughs to this day. I have not heard anyone laugh this hard in my life for what seemed like 5 minutes. And we just start like waving to everybody.
Yeah. We're now realizing we're carrying the flag for the LGB and we're like, okay. And he's like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, finish the tour.
Make out? I mean, I don't know. What are we supposed to do?
Rising rainbow.
Yeah. I mean, we should have like had an idea when he like kind of was like, do you want the blanket? And we're like, no, we're good without the blanket. And then, but the funny thing is before this conversation, he like takes a picture of us. And for some reason, because it is crammed, we're both sitting there with like our legs kind of in like, and again, in the most feminine, like whatever. And we're like, and I was, this picture is amazing. Now knowing what we know.
And then later, we didn't get I think the statute of limitations is up. So we didn't get a commercial visa. We got a tourist visa. And so everyone at like customs would be like, so what are you guys doing in Japan? And we're like, just going out there for tourism. And
doing a rickshaw together,
just the two of you.
Yeah.
And what'd you do in Japan? And we're like, no, nothing.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, so we were just kind of assumed to be a very progressive couple.
You're in an abusive gay relationship.
Yes, as far as everyone had customs.
That was the funny part too. Yeah. So they're like, not only are they staring at us because we look like a gay couple in a rickshaw, but somebody is getting beat up in this relationship. Yeah, it was really.
We're closeted. Okay. That's what I would say. We're closeted. Please have some respect.
Right.
And every trip there was like a cast of characters that we would be with. So first it was Nam, then later it was Jonathan Brookins, and then later it was Barnett, Victor Henry, and Colleen.
Yeah. We had Barnett there one time, and that was an interesting situation. He was dating the girl Colleen, who he was also coaching, and she was fighting, and they were having very public domestic discourse throughout.
So Joey, this is when Aaron Riley told us about destroying Matt Hume's gym. This was the relationship that Barnett was in
Right.
on the Aaron Riley interview. Yeah.
Independently, they were cool.
Yeah.
Like if you were with one of them, Barnett was awesome once he warmed up to you. Colleen was cool, but the two of them together, it just became this thing. And I remember there's one workout. So he and I are rolling. We get our workout in, and then she's like escalating the situation with Josh. And generally speaking, I'm a jiu-jitsu black belt. I'm, fairly physical. I rarely am in fear. And Josh starts just raising his voice and she's egging him on. And I'm like, man,
No,
there is no one on earth
I'd rather.
that can stop this guy. And I'm like, it keeps escalating. And I'm like, I'm not, if he now he didn't, I want to make it clear. He didn't do anything out of the line, but I'm like, imagine, like, if he does, we're dead. And then out of nowhere, Victor Henry, who's like a 135er, just like grabs both of them. He's like, hey, cut the shit.
Yeah.
Like, and he makes both of them be like, okay, I'm sorry. And I'm like, thank God he did that.
Yeah.
Because I was terrified.
Yeah, we were all like, we don't know where this is going.
This, Brian, you have lined up another fantastic guest for us.
Oh, yeah.
Joey, Andy, I was explaining to Joey, I go, man, his career, it's too early. It's too early. But you also, like Brian, you mentioned, you can't pass on opportunity. But at the end of the day, you did it to open up a gym, to have your own business, and you're doing quite well, which is good.
Yeah. Well, here's what I'll say, looking back on it, because, in retrospect, like, sure, there was other things which I kind of glazed over, but like during that time, like I did get the call back to the UFC twice. I just couldn't take it because I got the call back to the UFC after I blew out my knee.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, right, like right after. And then the other one, I didn't get like an official call back, but like I got a, how's Andy doing kind of thing.
Wait. Was this before or after Nick Diaz hit on your wife?
So the funny thing is Nick Diaz did not hit on my wife. He wouldn't talk to her. He sent somebody to try to get her number later on after he left like a dinner. Yeah, I mean that's a whole separate thing. My wife was a correspondent, and there were
For the news media.
Yeah, and there was a few of them that tried their best and failed. That's really funny. That was after, Nick. And the funny thing is I already knew Nick, right? So like, but like I still was like, whatever. Like he just obviously he either doesn't know or he doesn't care, and like I'm not like from my. Like,
didn't he like admit it to you? Like at one point.
I think he said. I think I made a joke about it at some point. Because like another random story, he randomly showed up at my bachelor party in Vegas. Yeah, so he was at my bachelor party.
Nick Diaz randomly showed up at your bed. Was this?
So there was a period of time that we always used to joke that Nick's at the club. Like, where's Nick Diaz? Nick's at the club. Like he was heavily into the club scene in Vegas. I think he moved to Vegas. And
Maggie was living in Vegas at this point, right?
Not at this point, because now we're engaged. She's home. She lived in Vegas and worked for Fox Entertainment out there. And that's when she was also doing some corresponding, and she would end up at like dinners with, some fighters. And then, sometimes they'd ask her for a number, or they would leave and then send somebody else to ask her for a number. But Nick, I'm out there, and I had trained with him a couple of times by this point. And the place that I was training was at Syndicate. That was while my then girlfriend lived in Vegas. So I would go stay with her, train at Syndicate. Nick was doing a seminar. I was training with him there. So he knew, and like she was with me, like the whole thing. So I don't know. And again, I was like, whatever. Like I don't really care. Like
dude, he shot a shot and he missed. I mean,
who shot, guy? Like whatever. Like I'm not best friends with, but my bachelor party, I'm out there with a few guys and my brother and a few guys, and we're just walking through the hotel, and he like just comes up and he's just like, Andy? And I was like, Nick, what up? And my friends are like, what is going on? Like, why is Nick Diaz? Like, they don't know that I'm like friends with him. We're kind of friends with him. And then he, you know, so we talked to him for a little bit. What are you guys gonna be? Whatever. And we're like, we don't really know. So we're just out. And he found, like, I wasn't even talking to him. He finds me. We had a table at this club in Vegas. He finds us and just like totally like ransacks, like brings a couple of girls with him, drinks a bunch of the alcohol that we paid for that we couldn't really afford, and then just bounces. And I'm like, stick, Nick. Yeah, you know. But whatever. But yeah, I have some funny pictures with him from that as well. But
Andy May, dude, Brian, Andy, we're gonna start doing like a roundtable series. We're definitely gonna include you guys in that. This is fantastic. Joey, I mean, it's been over 2 hours. So like,
Keep them coming, Brian.
Yeah,
Andy, nice to meet you. Thank you guys both.
yeah, nice
Take
to meet
care,
you.
guys. Absolute pleasure, Andy. Take care.
All right.
Got it.
See ya.